Let's go ahead and do that.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a regular meeting of the Silverton Board of Trustees. It is May 9th and the time is 7:02 p.m. and I call this meeting to order. Call, please.
Trustee Davis.
Here.
Trustee Cranker.
here.
Trustee Harper.
Here.
Trustee Bierma.
Here.
Trustee George.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Here.
Mayor Furman.
Here.
Everybody's in attendance.
This evening, do we have any staff or board revisions to tonight's agenda?
I do have one. I would like to add an agenda item to new business 4B. And this would be a consideration to approve a letter of support for the Silverton Family Learning Center. And I did email out that letter of support to you all prior.
That sounds great.
That's it.
Wonderful. All right, so at this time, we'll begin our first public comment period. We do not have any in-person attendees, so we'll go straight to Zoom. If you're on Zoom and you would like to make a public comment, please click the raise hand button. We'll promote you to panelist. And you can introduce yourself. You have 3 minutes. And we look forward to hearing from anyone that would like to speak. Does not look like we have any public comment at this time, so we'll go ahead and close public comment period and move on to the first item on our agenda, which is 3A, Clear Networks presentation to offer another fiber internet service in Silverton.
Great. And so we have Casey and Doug here with Clear Networks. And they have prepared a 15-minute presentation for you all on providing fiber to our residents.
Hi there, can you guys hear me okay?
We can. Thank you, Casey.
All right. Hi, I'm Casey. I think Doug's jumping in here too. There he is. I'm jumping in from the office. He's jumping in from home. So I'm the Director of Business Development at Clear Networks. And then this is Doug. Doug's the owner. We're based out of Montrose, Colorado. We wanted to go over a quick presentation, and then there's a couple things we wanted to just go over specifically with the town. So we'll kind of throw that up. Gloria, do I have presentation rights? It looks like I do. All right.
Yep, you're good to go.
Great. And I think Gloria provided you guys a packet. This presentation is just a little bit different than the packet you guys have. We just tried to short form it a little bit, and we changed a couple slides. So most of the material is basically the same, but wanted to stay within that 15-minute window, and then just try and address maybe some questions that are more specific to the town. So all right. We'll get started. We just wanted to really quickly introduce, who we are and what we're doing. Really, we have two companies. So Clear Networks is a fiber internet service provider. We build fiber optic, fiber to the home, typically to residents and businesses, as well as enterprise institutions. We service a lot of schools and hospitals. And we founded that business in 2012. Actually, our first business was Deeply Digital. And we started first as an IT company. We were servicing businesses and doing like some computer repair work. We started that back in 2003, but over time we had some enterprise customers that were looking to move Montrose just because they couldn't get good access to internet. And so at that point, we couldn't really engage CenturyLink or any of the other providers in our area to connect them. And since those were larger employers in our area, we worked with those basically to build fiber and connect those guys with the connections they needed just to keep them in town. And then that kind of evolved. Eventually, we started getting schools and hospitals asking us for that same connectivity. And that's when we started Clear Networks. Deeply Digital, eventually, we sold the IT business and we shifted into fiber construction and consulting. That was a big need in Western Colorado, working quite a bit with Region 10 and some of the other governmental associations who were trying to promote broadband. So there was not really a great resource for the construction or, the design process. And so Deeply Digital started to fill that in as we were doing it for ourselves already. We kind of filled that need. So those are our two companies. Both are, wholly owned by Doug, and we've got 100% Colorado-based staff. Really, most of our staff is based in Montrose. We do have a few kind of spread out throughout the area, like in Uray and Telluride. We've also got some north of here in Delta and Cedar Ridge. We've got about 70 staff currently. They range from fiber design, excavation. We've got project management teams. We do all our in-house GIS and asset management once we build all the fiber, keeping track of all that. We've got a grant writing team. We attract a lot of last mile and middle mile grant funding to the region. And then we've got business and finance and obviously a networking team to keep that network reliability up. This is kind of our network footprint. These are some of the towns that we've built out or process of building out. You can see Silverton's on that map. As you know, we're proposing a fiber to the premise solution for the town. Nuclear and Natarita are also slated for this year, and we're currently under construction in Delta. So some of those are newer markets that we're adding on this spring and summer, and some are existing builds that we have. We're expanding into the northern sections as well. We're looking at Fruita and Palisade, been working with those guys. We got some calls earlier last year working on getting broadband into the area. So we're just trying to bring it into that Mesa County region. And then as well as southwestern Colorado, just working on that area as well. Obviously applying to the public-private partnership with Cortez. We have an existing public-private partnership with the town of Bayfield. We worked a lot with those guys on bringing in some grant funding and are hopeful to start. We're just waiting on a couple more material items to come in, and then we'll start that full town build here in the next, hopefully a couple weeks. But we're working on some more southern expansions as well, like Durango or Mancos, Pagosa Springs. Worked on a grant with Southwest COG for Vallecito and County Road 240 as well. Just really quickly, we're a fiber to the home company. Primarily, we do offer a fixed wireless solution as well. Typically, we'll use fixed wireless as a way to build out into the community and get people connected as it takes time to construct the fiber portion. In the town of Silverton, we're proposing a full fiber to the premise build. And this is just a real quick snapshot. We've provided some more detailed maps to Public Works and Gloria and some of the other members of the town. But what we're trying to do is bring in 100% availability for the fiber connection throughout town. That fiber connection for the residential side starts at 150 megabits per second for $60 a month. And then we scale all the way up to a gig. On the business side, this says we start at $100 a month. We actually have a small business package that we typically run and promote with towns and small business districts. And that actually starts at $80 a month. Kind of the same speed packages. We do 150 megabit symmetrical fiber internet as our starting package. And then we go up to a gig. We do deploy a router with all of our technology, our fiber internet plans. The reason for that is a lot of times when we go into some of the more rural communities who are used to DSL internet, the routers can't quite keep up with our speed. And so while we're providing great connectivity to the home, we're not really solving the whole internet experience kind of issue. So we just provide that Wi-Fi 6 router that can keep up with those gigabit speeds, and that helps improve usually the in-home experience as well. We can't obviously fix printers. We can't tell you, why your printer's maybe not working, but it does allow us to kind of extend that support into the home a little bit. We talked about going up to 1 gig, but the technology that we're actually deploying specifically in Silverton, we call XGS PON. It's a newer and latest technology, and it actually gives us full scalability all the way up to 10 gigabits if we'd like to. So the nice thing about fiber is that the cable itself can keep up with any kind of capacity you need to. It can handle hundreds or thousands of megabits per second. And it's really the limiting factor is the equipment we put on either end. And in this case, we're putting equipment on either end that can handle that 10 gigabit speed if we need it to. And kind of the idea behind that is just, future proofing. So we're putting that equipment in ahead of time today. So that way, if someone does need that 2 or 10 gig scalability, we have the option to just flip a switch and kind of activate that. We offer phone services with our fiber internet plans. A lot of people aren't really going with phones, but we still have that product because in a lot of the rural areas, especially, we see people with poor cell phone coverage really needing that solution as well. Both of those are starting around $30 a month, but especially on the business side, the more, we add scale to that product for business customers, that price comes down, especially with like hosted phone products. Some kind of town specific, and I know I'm going really fast, so I apologize. I just want to stick within that 15-minute window, and then we'll try and jump around to some questions afterwards. But specific information for you guys, we wanted you to be aware of some affordability stuff that we're working on. The way we kind of address broadband is really, is there an availability piece and an affordability piece? It's great if we build past every home and every home has access to fiber internet. But kind of the second piece we're trying to solve is, what good is that if it's not affordable to any of the residents coming into the area? So the first way we tackle that is really just, can we make it competitive with the local providers? We believe we've done that. I mean, the $60 mark is pretty competitive, especially for the Silverton market. And when we're starting at 150 megabits per second, typically we're starting well above, if not double the speed that, some of these other providers are usually offering. The second way we kind of look at doing that is typically through like subsidy programs. And there's a couple different ways we actually tackle that as well. The first one is pretty normal, and it's actually what a lot of providers are doing, but not a whole lot of local providers. The ACP, or the Affordable Connectivity Program, is a federally funded program. It provides a $30 discount to any internet service plan on our network to qualifying members. And typically, just to be qualifying, you have to have maybe, I think it's, be a certain level on the poverty rate, or have a student participating in like free and reduced lunch. So there's several factors that allow you to be eligible. They have an online platform that you go to and submit some information, and then that qualifies you. And then from there, we can hook them up and provide a free installation, and then $25 a month service. The second way we do that is actually our own impact program. So we work with a lot of local partners, and then we'll try and bring in grant funding for these. And we'll also work with municipalities sometimes on these programs, but these are a little more targeted, and typically we'll pick them based on the community's needs, and also just, what partners we can kind of bring in some interest into. One of those programs, which we've actually rolled out in Bayfield and Montrose and in Norwood, is the Connecting Colorado Students program. So it's an impacts program we stood up late last year, kind of during COVID. We essentially attracted some funds to help subsidize our construction costs for building in an area. And then we matched those funds with cost savings for students and teachers. And then we did that through two specific cost saving programs inside of Connecting Colorado Students. The first is to target free and reduced lunch kids. We really wanted to target a program that would, help out financially challenged households. We wanted to make sure that those guys had access to internet, because some of the other people could afford it, but those guys typically aren't subscribing to stuff like that. And so what we did is we stood up a program where we offered actually free internet service in Montrose and in Norwood. And then Bayfield, what we're doing is $10 a month for 200 megabit symmetrical fiber internet service. And then the second program we offer is really just a $10 discount to all students and teachers. So even if you're not financially challenged, you still have a discount to participate and sign up for our service. We've also got several other programs that are either in development or are developed, and those include like a small business program. We're working on telehealth. We have a low-income housing program. And then our developer program works with like subdivision developers or MDU developers. As they're standing up homes, we like to get fiber connectivity in there first. And by the time people are ready to move in, that's already working, and they've got fiber internet, going throughout the home. The process for deploying this, obviously there's a construction phase, but before the construction phase, what we'll come up and do is try and hang some door hangers and do some general communication. So typically we'll blast on social media and try and promote that throughout the area, just make people aware of what we're doing. We'll typically do like a town hall style session where we invite the public and then just try and address questions and go over timelines with connectivity and construction. We'll also potentially do mailers. So that's kind of the first step. We have that door hanger there, and really that's a construction door hanger that just explains, here's what we'll be doing in your area. Here's when we'll be here. Here's what you might see. Like we might be working on the poles, or we might be underground. We're always going to operate within a right of way or a private easement, utility easement, and just some things that they can kind of expect with that. It also has our contact information on there. So if people do experience an issue with construction, they know exactly where to reach us. During the construction phase, obviously that's when we get the most interest. People see us out there working. We're kind of in the community, and they can see our crews and our trucks. So we get a lot of interest there. And then typically we'll kind of follow up construction with additional communication, letting people know, hey, we're done with the construction phase, and now it's time to light up. So that's when we're sending out mailers. We'll probably come through with another door hanger. We'll do some more social, or media blasting. And then typically at that point, we have quite a few emails that we can actually send out to as well. We have our own in-house. We kind of talked about that 70 plus crew, but we're a little different than most internet service providers because we actually keep all of our construction crews in-house as well. We do work with subcontractors, especially local ones in the area, That just helps us speed up our construction timeline. But because the management process and our GIS and our planning process is all in-house, it means working with the town is going to be just a little bit smoother. We'll actually set up some online maps and stuff that allow the town and Public Works to kind of see our progress and where we plan on going to next. They can see handholds as they're placed on a daily basis because our subcontractors and our in-house guys are typically showing daily reports on, hey, we just put this feet of fiber in the ground, and so we're all done here, and you can come check and see if there's any restoration needed or stuff like that. This is just kind of a quick example of some of the stuff that we typically put up for community. So this is Delta, and I know that there's a lot going on in here, but this just gives a design map and shows kind of our progress levels as we go through. Again, this is all updated on a daily basis, and we'll set up different maps that are helpful for different departments depending on who wants to work with us a little bit. And the last thing I just wanted to go over is quick timelines, and Doug and I will probably talk about that a little bit more in the Q&A. But what we're looking at as far as the timeline to start is we're hoping probably towards the mid or end of June, I believe, and maybe Doug can correct me on that. At this point, we're kind of monitoring the situation with one of the aerial subcontractors that we're wanting to work with up in the area. They've been a little delayed on another project, so that's kind of the only thing holding us up from giving a firm start date. But other than that, we're looking to start really in the summer and progress through with typically like a month or a month and a half construction window where we'll come in and do all the distribution network. And then after that, you'll see us in the area really just doing drops. So we won't be digging up roadways or attaching the poles, but we'll be coming off those poles or maybe just throwing a drop into a home and lighting up customers at that point. So I know that was a lot of information, and hopefully I didn't overwhelm anyone, but we kind of wanted to go over the quick basics and then just see if we could answer any specific questions or if we could go over anything specific that's helpful for you guys.
Awesome, Casey. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. Trustees, what kind of questions do we have?
I have to say it's very exciting to hear that there could potentially be wires in the ground, fiber in the ground going to homes. That is a very exciting proposition in my household.
Well, good, because that's the biggest thing is we need customers to sign up.
I had a few questions. I'll jump in. Maybe that'll spawn some more. I'm curious if you need a minimum number of customers to sign up before, if we were to move forward together. Do you have to hit a minimum before you can actually commit to doing work here?
We're committed. We've got the funding all put together. And at this point, we've come up a couple times and met with Gloria and just kind of outlining the plan of what's going on and when we feel like we'll start. But at this point, we're committed. We're coming up. Really, the only thing kind of, still up in the air, and I don't want to say up in the air, but it's just a specific start date. We do have that subcontractor that's currently working for us in another project. And we just want to make sure that they get wrapped up with some of the zones and the work that they needed to do there before they move on to Silverton and we knock that piece out. So at this point, we're definitely going to be up there and we expect to have service up and working for everyone before the fall.
Got it. Awesome. The next question I had is how much of the infrastructure would be above ground versus below ground?
Doug, did you want to take that piece? I can talk about that for a sec, but just to give you some time.
Well, thank you very much for letting us come and talk. I know that some of this might be new to some of you, but we're pretty excited. We've been looking at Silverton for several years now and think it's a very fun project and a place in our backyard and a place that we want to serve for sure. So there's always a mix between aerial and underground. We actually have some underground up there now serving a few customers there. The majority of the infrastructure will be overhead. That's partly because of the fact that there's quite a decent pole infrastructure there, and the connection to the home is much less intrusive than underground. And just with the type of dirt there, we believe that the overhead is a better product for your community.
So just to add a couple things to that, we're an underground construction company primarily. That's what we work on. So we actually sub out most of our aerial work. So the reason we would put infrastructure underground is obviously it's a little bit more secure. Unfortunately, when you do that, there's obviously a huge cost barrier. And then the biggest thing that's actually probably more cumbersome for us is just the timeline. We're talking about like a month construction season where we'll come up and just knock everything out. And we can do that because it's aerial. It goes so much smoother. There's less interference with customers. We don't have to dig through anyone's flower beds or anything like that. But when we switch that project to underground, it's like a 2-year project, and that's just really cumbersome, especially for a small community like that. Someone who's basing a lot of dollars on tourism, especially, that's difficult for you guys. So we'd like to come up there, kind of get it knocked out. And we've talked with like Gloria and some of the other people about this, but eventually being able to transition some of that stuff underground is something that we would eventually look at doing, but it would probably be paired with, the same time like SMPA maybe moves their power lines underground or something like that.
Got it. Thank you. That was actually a leading question to ask my real question, which is, if there is going to be significant infrastructure above ground, we live in a pretty extreme environment, similar to a lot of the other communities that you serve. It was very, very windy the last week or so. What kind of support do you guys have when things get knocked down or trees fall on lines, so that we can stay online as much as possible?
Yeah, I mean, the idea is just kind of building like a local support structure for that. I mean, there's going to be some issues, obviously, with service. Like, that's just kind of the nature. It's the same nature as power, right? Like, issues happen and outages happen. And so just our response time is kind of what defines us or makes us a little bit different than like some of our competitors. So just having people who are, as close as can be to some of that stuff. And then also putting in redundancies. That's kind of, short form without getting into the specifics of how we've designed the network and working through some of that stuff. But, those are some of the pieces that we'll put in place. That and just, constructing the network the right way from the first time and putting stuff up on the poles correctly and not just, kind of like wrapping it around the pole and going to the next one.
Nice. I'm glad you mentioned redundancy, because that's the topic of my next question. Right now, our fiber comes from the south, and we've been working with a bunch of partners to develop a line from the north. Are there aspects of you guys coming here that can help expedite, facilitate, or pay for some portion of getting our redundancy from the north?
It's something we've been working on for a long time. I'm actually going to let Doug answer that question, because he's been working on it for way longer than I have.
But we understand that you've had some service issues in the past, and that's partly why we've started looking at Silverton. We didn't want to overbuild a good solution, but if there was a need, we wanted to come and help with that. We're very involved with what SMPA is doing. We've also been awarded a grant in Telluride that goes up to Ames, and we're actually building up to the post office of Ophir. Had conversations with Tri-State on how to possibly build from Ophir. And then we've also talked to Tri-State on some different solutions coming from the south as well. So, we definitely want to be part of it. We've worked very hard over the last several years of working on easements. We built 18 miles from Nuclear to Norwood, and then we worked on the easements from Norwood to Telluride to bring in a fiber connection from Albuquerque and Grand Junction that direction, and hoping that in some way that is able to support this infrastructure that we're talking about, either coming through Ridgeway, so it's not just from Montrose and or over Ophir Pass possibly. And then we, be involved for sure with building into town from the substation. So it is something that we're working on. We need that. We want that for our infrastructure as well, not just for you guys, but make sure that our infrastructure there has some diverse routes. So yes, we are involved and would like to continue to work with that.
Awesome. Thank you. And then this is my last question. Can you help us understand what a healthy competitive landscape looks like versus like an overabundance of providers? So right now we have Vero, which recently acquired Brainstorm Forethought. We also have CenturyLink, and those are really only our two options unless the Starlink becomes amazing, but nobody's expecting that to be like a primary provider anytime soon. And so with you guys coming in as a third provider, is that good for the community, or does that, make CenturyLink and Vero have a harder time that increases rates, reduces overall coverage, or like what's the pros and cons of looking at new providers at this point?
There's a couple things with that. I think when we talk about, working with other providers, we actually call it co-opetition. It's just kind of like a fun word that we throw around here as like a way of, basically talking about, we like to work with some of those other providers. We've had a really good relationship with Forethought and, now Vero, and we know those guys pretty well. So, at a certain point there needs to be two solutions in town. And when we say two solutions, we say at least two, fairly reliable solutions. And I think, with CenturyLink, there's just not a focus into those rural communities. So it's tough for us to consider that as, like a primary solution for most users. We feel like in the area, there probably needs to be at least some competition, if not, at least a provider who's got a fiber network. I mean, I think the other thing with that is we just want the right solution in town. So currently, I think the solution that's in town is either basically the DSL through CenturyLink, or a lot of the customers who are using Forethought are actually going through a coax network. There's just certain limitations to those technologies. And so bringing in a fiber provider is, one, bringing in a new competitor, but we feel like bringing in at least the right solution into the community and hopefully bringing in a reliable one. Like you mentioned, because there's one feed coming into town, that's still a point of failure for really every network up there. I mean, it doesn't matter what provider you're with, but if that link goes down, there's an issue there. So that's one way typically we can differentiate ourselves in other communities, is just having multiple routes into town and being a little bit more reliable. But in this case, we're all on that one route. So we really do need to work pretty hard on bringing in that second route, not just for us, but really more for the community and some of the other providers in that area.
Awesome.
I know
Thank
that kind of bounced around your question, but we want to work well with those guys. At the same time, it's a small community, and it's hard for there to be a lot of providers who have, half the take rate in that area. So the idea is to get two really good solutions up there, and see if, we can't come in, at least provide reliable service for, I guess, those customers. And then how the other provider reacts, I mean, is, I guess that's kind of up to them.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I'll pass the mic now if anybody's thought of more questions. I can keep going.
I have
Yeah, please.
well, my first one, Shane covered a lot of them, but kind of relates to what you were just referring to. And that would be just if there are downsides to bringing in this format of internet. So, if we move forward with this particular model, does that prevent or keep us from being flexible with another option? I'm not super familiar with how competitive providers are in our region. It doesn't seem like there are that many options, but just before we head into infrastructure and start looking at hanging wires or digging holes, are there any downsides in setting that infrastructure in place?
So a couple things, I guess, with that. I mean, one, we're coming in with kind of our own investment, and that's, really the kind of the free will of any provider to do, right? So if Brainstorm tomorrow did also want to come up and develop a fiber solution, that's kind of up to them. That's what the right-of-way system is for. And so what we're looking to do is really make more of a future-proof investment. And that's the idea of fiber, right? With coax and with those cable or those copper services, there's kind of a limitation to what speed you can really generate out of those. And then at a certain point, you're going to have to replace the infrastructure. With fiber, what we're doing is we're putting in a solution that, it's using glass and light, and that light can really transmit speed as fast as you need it to. It's just the equipment you put on either end. So we're trying to put in something that we don't have to go and replace that utility in the next few years. We're trying to bring the right solution in and then, allow for scalability as people need more bandwidth. But it's, possible for another provider to kind of come up and do that. As far as downsides, I mean, it's a benefit to the town is how we see it. And that's why there's such a push for fiber to the prem and a lot of these communities, is because it's trying to bring in the right solution instead of just trying to kind of Band-Aid fix maybe like a coax solution or something like that. Competition is typically good, right, for the community. When we come in, we see Charter or CenturyLink or some of these other providers raise their game a little bit too. Either they can do that with pricing, or they come in and they upgrade their equipment, or they come try and compete and they swap out their copper solution for a fiber solution. I mean, I really can't tell you what, competitors are going to do in that market. It's probably not likely that another fiber provider other than, who's currently in that market or us is going to come in over top of us once we've built out Silverton and want to offer another fiber solution. The town really just, the economics probably don't support that. But, I guess the good news is we're not coming and proposing a new coax solution. right? Let's not come in and provide another
Right.
provider that's still not quite the right product.
Right.
We're coming in and providing at least the right
Something
product,
different.
and then hopefully the competitors can kind of react to that, and maybe there's a raise in competition level from that.
Thanks. And then on the
Yeah.
town side of things, I wondered, Doug, were you going to add on to that?
I just wanted to add, we're out of Montrose, we're local, we want to provide service to the community. We have a full town building, Uray. We hope to have every person sign up for our service because we think we're the best, and there needs to be no other competition because of who we are. But competition is what we live in every single day. And so we're hoping to bring a very good product, and we're going to be around because this is where we are and who we work with. And we're going to provide good service because we want people to sign up for our service. If we're not, if we get to a point where we're not taking care of the community, then, which is what is kind of the state that you're in right now, then there's going to be someone else that, will provide competition and make us better at what we do. So anyway, I guess, it's not, it feels maybe like you don't get to choose, but at the same time, I guess I feel like we're better than another national brand coming in. We're a smaller company. If you need my cell phone, you can call me. We try to take care of our community, and we're based in the Western Slope. We have full town builds in all the communities around you, and it just makes sense to be in Silverton as well.
Nice, thanks. My other question was just related to town investment, and you mentioned some subsidizing or town investment in sort of a public-private partnership. I wondered if we had considered that or discussed that at all, or if this is the time to do that, or.
I think the thing that I'll let Casey talk about the subsidy, but the one thing that we're maybe looking for and what we've asked for in every other community, Telluride, Uray, Norwood, we need a place to build the fiber to, and we've walked the town a few times. I still think that Town Hall is the best place to bring the fiber to. CenturyLink and the SCADA network and our current fibers going to Town Hall. So with Uray, we pay a monthly fee to be inside of Town Hall, City Hall. But if that's a possibility, and if that's something that you guys would consider letting us do, I would like to consider asking for that permission. If that's something that you're absolutely against, then that's fine as well. And we can look at using another location, for a cabinet or something. But I think having it in town, and we've gone over some pros and cons, and we can do that more tonight if you'd like, but we've with Gloria. And so I wanted to see what your guys' thoughts were on that. And if we could make I don't know if I make a formal ask tonight, but put that in front of you to see if that's something that we could consider.
Let me explain a couple of things with that. And we've kind of talked through this with Gloria and Beth as well. So if you guys need information, they're fairly involved in that. But the idea is, we've got to build all this fiber to a central point. And then on top of that, when we kind of do this, typically you're going to attract middle mile routes to that same point as well. So this kind of plays into more of like a regional, kind of decision, and more of like a multi-provider level decision than it really does, just for us. I mean, we need to build out the town, and we plan on starting at a certain point. So obviously we need to make a decision of where we're centralizing all this fiber to. But beyond that, when we build a new middle mile route into town, or whoever does, they're going to want to get it to, the providers in town. And right now that kind of location is Town Hall. And so that's why we feel like it either needs to stay Town Hall, or we need to redesign our network a little bit and maybe move some of those other, locations to somewhere else. The two options that we've kind of come up with is one, Town Hall in the basement. There need to be some remodel work done in order to kind of make sure that there's an access controlled environment where we can only access certain segments, and you can monitor who's coming in and out of that basement. We obviously can't access some of your other stuff. We've got that in our budget to do some of those things. But then at that point, you're attracting most of those middle mile routes to your Town Hall, and that gives the community a little more leverage and control with some of that stuff, which is good for you, because if you did need to attract another provider for whatever reason, I mean, we hope that that's not the case, because we're going to do such an awesome job servicing the community. But those middle mile routes are going directly to your Town Hall, and you have a little bit of leverage to kind of help promote that. So that's kind of the idea behind that.
And the other location is there's an empty cabinet behind the library. That was
And
owned
that
by
is,
EagleNet, is that correct?
yeah, we believe it's
Location as
owned.
well, EagleNet or Zayo now. We've not been given a yes or no. They obviously own it, so we can't just use it, but we could put something close by that if we were not able to get permission to use that cabinet.
Well, I think it's really good for us to be aware of that, but I think, you know, the ultimate decision will be Gloria and staff giving us direction of what they'd like. So I think it's good that we know, but I'm not sure we need to, you know, dive any deeper.
Yeah.
And then, so to answer your quick question on the subsidy or the public-private partnership, I mean, we're, you know, not seeking really anything from the town at this point, other than, you know, we'd like some help in just making sure that, you know, when we're coming into your community and offering fiber, we're doing it in a way that kind of empowers and impacts your community specifically, not just coming in to like hook up customers because that's the next place to make a dollar, but we'd like to do it in a way where, you know, it's actually showing some impact on your guys' side. And so one of the ways we do that is typically through those impact programs. The other way is, you know, just planning with you guys, like, you know, Doug was talking about, deciding where fiber goes and how we work on with middle mile routes with you guys. That's a huge piece, and that's going to impact your community significantly. But the second part of what we can do just specifically with you guys is more of these impact programs. At this point, we're not seeking dollars from the town unless you guys have dollars. I mean, we'll absolutely take any money we can bring in to help subsidize internet. But at the same time, we've done a pretty good job of attracting grants and other resources to bring in money for those types of programs. That said, you know, if you guys feel like you have like ARPA dollars or stuff like that, we've worked quite a bit with other communities on attracting those dollars into those programs as a way to kickstart them, and then bring in other dollars either from the state or from like the Colorado Health Foundation or, you know, other resources as well. So that's just kind of something for you guys to consider. But, you know, can think about like what programs would probably have the most impact in your community. I haven't looked up, you know, what like your free and reduced lunch rate is, but if, you know, that's been a big need in some of the other communities we've built out. And so we offered that program specifically because it actually connected a high number of homes and allowed these students to have connectivity, especially during the pandemic, when a lot of those kids went remote. You know, we were just getting calls from the Norwood School District saying, hey, can we just figure out a way to get these kids connected? Because otherwise they're just not, you know, they're not doing school this year. So that program kind of, you know, came out of that. Same with like telehealth and our low income housing program. So if you guys have some needs or like workforce housing or anything, tell us what those are, just give us an idea. And then if you have money to contribute to it, great. Otherwise, we're going to go try and create a program around it and then attract funding to it as well.
So I'm thinking the next steps will be that Doug and Casey and I will talk about the location a little bit more on where they'll be located. And then I'll bring that all to you for a decision if it is at town hall or on town property. Does that sound good?
Mhm.
Okay, great. And Doug and Casey had offered to be here in person tonight. I said that they could just do Zoom. I think it would be fine, especially with the road closures right now. But they have met with me in person now, probably about 3 or 4 times since last fall. Very dedicated to this project.
Yeah, and I wanted to add real quick, Doug and Casey, thanks so much for the presentation. And I'm really excited to have a local, you know, Western Slope company come up and offer another service, and especially with that final mile, the way you guys have that mapped out, because it's the communication from some of our other sources isn't great about how you can, you know, how do we get that done? How do we get this hooked up? You know, we finally got fiber, but I know plenty of people that are like, well, we have fiber to town, but how do I get it? And so I'm really looking forward to having somebody else up here that can help us out. And a lot of the impact programs also, those looked really, really cool. And I think those could be really helpful for our community. So thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks everyone. We appreciate the time. And I mean, you know, you've probably got most of our information. If not, get with Gloria. But if you guys have additional questions, feel free to reach out. You know, like you said, Tyler, we're based out of Montrose and we're in that area all the time. We do want to be the local guys, and we want to hand our cell phone numbers out. We want to be, you know, the local presence. So if you guys have questions, just, you know, reach out. We're happy to kind of work through that process with you guys.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys both very much. Any other final questions before we move on? Nope. Okay, that's it, guys. Thank you so much. We look forward to speaking with you more.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
And Gloria, thanks for setting that up.
Yeah.
That is exciting.
Any other discussion before we move on to the next agenda item? Okay, great. So we're now moving to new business 4A, consideration to approve the real estate offer to purchase property to be dedicated for affordable housing.
All right, so this is a real estate offer to purchase property that would be used to also annex in Anvil and become dedicated for affordable housing. We received a DOLA IHOI. I keep wanting to call it the IHOP grant, but it's not, in the amount of $371,020. And so our match will be $74,204, and the purchase price is $400,000. The grant includes environmental assessment 1 and 2, as well as an appraisal, which we can waive since we don't need financing. But since it is a public purchase, I would like to keep that on the table and leave it up to your trustee discretion. And then this offer is contingent on a boundary adjustment, which the Zenonis have committed to completing prior to the purchase of the property. And this offer, if approved, would be presented to the Zenonis with the contingencies of the boundary adjustment.
For anyone who is listening but maybe didn't read the packet, the memo on this is really helpful and detailed and had a lot of information that I wasn't aware of as we were talking about requirements for annexing Anvil and other things like that. And so it's pretty cool. So the main thing is, in order to annex Anvil, we need a certain number of contiguous feet of property line with Anvil, which we do not currently have. And buying this property gets us most of the way there.
Correct, yes.
But not all of.
But not
this.
all the
We
way.
need to talk about that.
We are working on that, and there are options as well. If we do have close to that amount, I know that we can figure something out. But right now, we don't really have a property line with Anvil and the town together. So once we create that property line, we're less likely to get into the realm of that flagpole annexation where it's just a road going up, because the road does not count as our property line. So,
Okay.
Wasn't there also in the memo, wasn't there an agreement from another property owner that would have then allowed us to have?
yeah, they had expressed interest, but Lisa and I had just noticed that they had, it's still for sale or pending. So we were a little worried about that one going forward, but we're hoping that to entice them with, town services, part of our town, we can get them to annex in with the Zenoni annexation.
Excellent.
Because currently both of those parcels are county.
So there's 2 parcels in the Zenoni property. Most of it actually is in the county, and then there's like a smaller sliver on the bottom that's in the town. So the Zenoni parcel itself is split.
Yeah. And then this third property is in the county.
Yes, yeah, the private.
Is that up on Shrine Elmore?
So that's where they call it Elephant Hills. Yeah.
So
We call.
okay.
So my takeaway is that this is an awesome land banking
Yeah.
opportunity, and
Yeah.
it's not primarily for the purpose of annexing Anvil, but it gets us a lot closer.
And it's the annexation of Anvil, whether or not that is viable and on what timeline, is sort of separate from the good idea of purchasing the Zenoni property. So it gets us closer to the annexation, but regardless of that, it's still a really important piece of property for the town to own.
Correct. So this is flat land that we can build on, which is rare here. And it's a significant chunk of it too. So we could potentially build out, I think I had it in the notes there.
10 or 15.
Yeah,
Single
10
family or
to 15.
15 townhomes.
Or if we wanted to go condo denser, but it gives us that opportunity. It also, the the grant itself restricts it to 140% AMI, which currently Anvil's restricted to 120% or 25% AMI. So this gives us that like attainable housing that that we could potentially have market for.
Mhm.
And it's pretty amazing that you were able to get the DOLA grant for 90-something% of the purchase price.
It's amazing.
It was a very difficult grant process, but what I want to say there is that we've had strategic priorities for affordable housing in place, and we had to have 5 of these priorities that they had identified out of 15, and we met that. So they kind of commended us for being able to meet these. You know, we are already on this trajectory, and so that really helped us get this grant.
I kind of wanted to lift that quote out of the packet just to bring light to this for the community. The letter identifies those factors, and then he says, additionally, we reviewed your submitted qualifying land use strategies and would like to not only confirm that you qualify for this funding program, but applaud your progress in this area. I think that's a celebration.
And that's a lot of the works with the ADUs and a lot of work that has been done prior to me coming, and Lisa Adair has really been on point with that. So I just wanted to give her a lot of credit for implementing those and having us be eligible for this grant. And she also sat in on the interviews and helped me with every application. So huge shout out to Lisa here.
Thank you, Lisa. And then I had one other thing on this. I don't know. Sorry. I wondered, and maybe this is in the contract here and I missed the language of it, but we are intending to purchase this property for affordable or attainable housing. And is that a situation where we need to deed restrict our own purchase to make sure that it remains property that's allocated for housing? So that, you know, as boards turn over or as things change in town, that it doesn't get looked upon differently as like, actually, that would make a great parking lot, or actually that would make a nice, I don't know.
Yeah, no, you know what? That is,
High level parking garage.
that is an excellent.
I'm going with
It's a
parking.
great question.
I don't know.
I would actually refer to either Clay or Lisa on this one, if that is something viable that we could do.
Well, the DOLA grant is contingent on it being used for that.
Yes.
That's happening like at a moment in time. How do we make sure that it's
Right.
very clear that that's the intended use into the future?
And we had intended to deed restrict in the future as we sell, but buying it, I'm not sure. Clay, do you have any insight on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be up to the trustees, but you can certainly deed restrict the property for its use. You just have to be careful how you do it, because it depends on what development's going in there for, you know, how you're going to deed restrict it. But certainly you can put a generic deed restriction on it for, you know, whatever the board of trustees decide, say that this property will be used for, you know, any allowable density, or, you know, say you're going to do, you know, you're going to allow a more density because it is deed restricted. However you guys do that in the future, just make sure to generically list it now if you do deed restrict it before you develop it, because you don't want to get yourself in a situation where you've deed restricted options away from yourself, if that makes sense. So if you're going to do something, I would do something very generic, that you're deed restricting it for workforce housing, future workforce housing development, something along those lines. But certainly you can file, you know, any deed restriction that you want to, so that it runs with the property and it shows anybody who were to look at, you know, the title history, you know, what that property is designated for.
Clay, would it make sense to just use the same language that's in the grant? Because that's pretty wide open, other than that. It's
Yeah, I think that's
housing and AMI.
Right.
That's a great idea. I mean, we're stuck with the grant is for that. So I think you mentioned it, Mr. Mayor. And so you're going to have that connection anyway. So I think that's a really smart generic way to do it. I do like the language in that. contract, in that grant application for that reason. And so, yeah, I think that's a fine way to do it.
Nice. And process wise, that would happen after we close?
Yeah, once we get title, I can show you guys a few examples of like a kind of like a raw land deed restriction, what that would look like. It's not hard. You're basically just filing in the chain of title that shows that you're deed restricting that particular property for an intended use. It's almost like doing it. Oh shoot, it's escaped me. Like the environmental restrictions or what, you know, you're basically just filing. When you file your deed, you're going to file language to restrict that property. And I have some examples. Like a conservation easement almost.
Great question. Thanks.
I have a question regarding, again, the annexation, and not for the whole Anvil subdivision, but you did mention that the property is partially in the town and partially in the county. So if we can't, just plain devil's advocate, if we can't somehow get the required amount of land to annex Anvil, that doesn't preclude us from annexing the rest of the Zenoni property into the town of Silverton, does it? I mean, we'll be able to move that entire property into the town of Silverton.
Yes, we will be able to move that property into the town of Silverton once we purchase it.
Okay, thank you.
I had two questions. One, just for my beginner edification. So, and our match is coming from our general fund,
Yes.
right? Okay. And then for the expenditure, you have the housing authority line item in the memo. Can you explain that?
Yes, so we were allowed to put up to 20% of administration of the grant cost in there. And I asked for 50,000, but we were awarded 20, which is fine. And so that 20 would go towards the administration of the grant. If we do not have a housing authority, that 20 would go back to the town because we would be the administrators of the grant.
Gotcha, great, thank you. And then are we paying brokerage fees for those? Will those be part of the closing costs?
No, we're not paying brokerage fees. And we have offered to just pay for an appraisal and environmental 1 and environmental 2.
Okay, great, thank you.
It's not in there, is it?
And do we need to discuss the appraisal?
Even if it was, it wouldn't come out of our.
Oh, yeah.
Did you want direction on whether or not we want to do the appraisal?
Yeah, if you think we need to do an appraisal, we did get a broker's analysis for the grant because they had asked for an appraisal, but they asked for that within a week of when the grant was actually due. So I scrambled around for a while. Or actually, it was 2 weeks. Let me say it was 2 weeks. So I tried to find an appraiser in
Felt like a week.
February to try and get one done before, and I couldn't. So I was able to get a broker's analysis, and that was adequate for them. Typically appraisal would be done, if we had financing, but in this case, we won't have financing. So Dole is happy with the broker's analysis, but we could do the appraisal as well. I have contacted a couple of appraisers and they are available probably in June or July right now. I tried to get it.
Pretty hard.
I know. I tried to get it in May, but apparently this is the height of the season.
I'm curious what anybody else thinks. I really don't see a benefit in spending that $5,000
I don't
on
either.
appraisal.
Or delaying the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any objections to getting an appraisal? Or Clay, do you foresee any issues we create by not getting appraisal with the understanding that we're not trying to get financing and that's the normal reason we'd get an appraisal?
No, I think you're fine not getting an appraisal. There's some very kind of off, very crazy sort of scenarios where an appraisal might help you. But in this case, because you're paying cash and because you know better than anybody what the value of that property is because you live there and you see it from day to day. I would say that I would save the town money and not get the appraisal.
Thank you. And do you have any idea of what the timing would be for the phase 1 and if needed, phase 2?
I don't yet. I'm still getting in contact with EcoSphere on that one.
Okay, did we bid that out or we're just?
We haven't bid it out yet. I was just trying to get kind of a feeler of ideas, and they're usually really good about getting back to me right away.
Cool. Danny said you had 2 questions. Did you ask them both or just one?
I did.
Okay, cool. Jeff, anything from you?
I guess the only thing I keep thinking about is, will the annexation, will that have any effect on us actually being able to build units? Do those things have to happen in some sort of timeline?
No, and so this property can be land banked for affordable housing, so we have time to develop on it. So we don't have a time restriction to annex or to develop. I have some timelines in mind, but there's nothing on the books there.
And actually, Jeff, if you're finished, I had one more question regarding, I know we keep using, and I was at a meeting with the county the other night as well, and we keep using this term workforce housing. And I know there was a sort of definition for workforce housing or employee housing for when we were letting people stay in their RVs on property. But do we have an actual definition for what employee housing or workforce housing, or how they qualify to be employee housing or workforce housing?
We don't, because we don't have that in place yet, but there are definitions out there that I could present to you all that you could choose from if we wanted to define that workforce housing. Clay, do you have a comment on that?
Well, what was the percentage that was in the grant application? What was the AMI percentage?
140%.
All right, so our definition for this project, and it is a very general definition as well that comports with many counties and municipalities that are doing this, would be workforce housing is housing provided as the area median income of 140% or lower, and above 60%, because that's when you get into definitionally your low income. So anywhere between 60 and 140 would be considered workforce housing, and when you go to targeted development, of course you want to try to get a range of that, between 60, 80 to 140%, because that will help pencil the project for private partnership with the town and development for the future.
And I was also just thinking about that because I think there's been some projects that have come to the Planning Commission, and the project is sometimes it's asking for either a variance or an exception for employee or workforce housing. So I just think as long as whatever we have in place is consistent across the board, so not only for projects that we are doing at the town, but private folks are coming up and asking for it, just making sure that definition is consistent. So, I think that might be important.
That's a Trustee George. That's a great comment. I think one thing that we need to work on as we go forward in this development, and one thing I've talked with staff about, is coming up with some of these policies. And what you kind of referred to was a density bonus policy. Hey, yeah, this is only zoned, R6, but we can, we'll allow 25% more for density as if you'll deed restrict them, or whatever the case may be. And so that's something that definitely the trustees need to sit and discuss. But I think density bonus is a great way to get deed restrictions for free, and it also maximizes development opportunities for those private developers and those private partnerships. that might come to call for any RFPs you guys put out. So that's a good point.
I have one more question. What happens if we are like if the environmental ends up being significantly over budget? Like if the phase 2 costs more than we're expecting and recommends a phase 3? What do we do at that point?
I would come back to you all for more money.
And is there,
And I'm hoping that would be right around budget season was my goal. That if it did come back, we could budget for it for 2023. Since we don't have a set timeline for this one.
got it. And is there more potential DOLA funding available if we need to keep going? Or is there any like brownfields money out there?
I would have to look into that one. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Would someone like to make a motion, or are there further questions and discussion?
I can make a motion. I make a motion to approve the property purchase offer for the Zenoni parcels as defined in the offer with the contingency of a boundary adjustment.
No second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
One, do we need to add the getting rid of the assessor? Because that's part of the, or is that? Do we need to add that into the motion that we're not going to do an assessment?
Appraisal.
The appraisal.
Or sorry, thank you.
It's not, that wasn't part of the motion made because it was only about the purchase offer, but I think we could separately give that direction to not do that with the motion still being intact. Does that sound right to everybody?
Great stuff.
Okay, so thank you, Jeff.
Trustee Davis,
Yes.
trustee Kränker,
Yes.
trustee Harper,
Yes.
trustee Bierma,
Yes.
trustee George,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney,
Yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Feels like a celebration.
And I guess
right.
just to confirm
I'm learning.
Bottle of champagne.
Jeff's question, does anyone have an objection to giving Gloria the direction not to get an appraisal? There's lots of negatives in that. Everybody's good with not getting an appraisal.
No objection. No, yeah, no appraisal.
Okay,
We're done.
wonderful. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to new business 4B, which is the addition, the letter of support for SFLC.
And so in the coming weeks, the state officials will release an RFP for entities that desire to serve as a local coordinating organization to navigate a new statewide system. And Silverton Family Learning Center plans on submitting this RFP and serving as the local coordinating organization for San Juan County. This is in regards to, and I was trying to figure out kind of everything that was going into this, but basically they would be a point of contact for us for some of these programs that are coming out as far as the universal preschool program. So that I'm sorry, I was trying to decipher it. I got it today. It's a letter of support for our learning center.
That's nice.
Sarah is she is a grant writing master and she's really capable of like coordinating these different organizations. And I think any support we can give them is overall good for the community. Because when SFLC is closed, I know how hard it can be, guys.
I know. Chaos. It's chaos.
We need it.
Okay.
Is this direction or is this?
This is a motion so that I can use your signature.
I'll make a motion to write a letter of support. I don't see it in my packet, but I'll make a motion to write a letter of support from the town to Silverton Family Learning Center.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Davis,
Yes.
trustee Kränker,
Yes.
trustee Harper,
Yes.
trustee Bierma,
Yes.
trustee George,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney,
Yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank Thank you, everybody. The next item on our agenda is section 5, approval of consent agenda items.
I've got one addition to make. We do have one check added to the accounts payable. That is a check for $9,330.40. That is a Main Streets Open for Business grants reimbursement for the Coffee Bear.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Trustee Davis,
Yes.
trustee Cranker,
Yes.
trustee Harper,
Yes.
trustee Bierma,
Yes.
trustee George,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney,
Yes.
Mayor Furman,
Yes,
motion passes unanimously.
thank you very much. Ooh, did you want to flag the Bruin waste update in the consent agenda?
The first of a couple memos that
Okay.
you will receive.
Got it. Okay, staff reports.
Well, I mean, I guess I could say that the Bruin waste, it did go up according to their contract, so there's not much we can do on our end. It's all part of it. I just wanted to notice that our waste will be going up 7.9%. Okay, so staff reports, and hopefully we can cover that with our new tags that we have and our new fee structure at the transfer station. We're hoping that we're going to see a positive this year in our refuse fund.
Right, so
Okay, I guess-
Bruin is charging the town more, but the town is not changing the fees to the community members.
Correct.
Other than what has already taken place.
Correct.
Yeah,
At this time.
at this time.
All right, staff reports. We're currently seeking a full-time planner position to assist Lisa Adair. She also has a part-time planner starting in June. So we're excited for that. And we've interviewed for the library director position and should have an announcement, but probably after our May 18th board meeting.
Oh my gosh.
And it's very exciting.
Weird. Cool.
That's all I have for staff reports, unless you have any questions.
I just had one question for Todd. It came up with a couple community members that were asking about the baseball fields. Just like, they were saying, can we help? Can we rake it? Can we seed it? Can we fix the sprinkler? Can we, whatever needs to happen? There was just a heightened community interest that came to me about our baseball fields. And again, I know we always have competing priorities, but just curious if there was any update that I could give.
I'm going to double down on that question because I have a feeling that we heard from similar groups of people.
Interesting.
And they also included putting the net up at the volleyball court. And then I know that Jordan in the past has mentioned the deterioration of the soccer goals.
That's in the staff.
I feel like those things do get used pretty frequently.
And we just ordered new soccer goals.
Awesome.
And for the field questions, these folks were very interested in helping however they could. Basically, there was huge volunteer interest that people were willing to like dig trenches and fix sprinklers or whatever needed to happen. So it was on people's radar.
Do you mind
Nice.
putting that to panelists?
I have sent.
Oh, you did, okay.
Invitation. Once more.
Oh, there we go.
Mind muting, Trustee George?
Pardon?
Do you mind muting Trustee George?
Hi, Todd.
Hey, good evening. I kind of just caught the tail end of the soccer goals and the conversation. What can I help with?
Yeah, thanks, Todd. I was just saying that I had gotten some strong community interest in questions about the field, especially the baseball field. And these community members were very interested in what they could do to help, whether that's like raking, reseeding, helping dig up sprinklers and repairing, whatever needed to happen. They were very intrigued about how they could help. And so I was just curious kind of what sort of update I could give on what some of our options might be. And Shane was referencing as well questions about the volleyball net being able to be put up. And I saw in your staff report that we have bought the soccer goals. So that's great improvement. But yeah, questions about some of the fields and the volleyball court.
Sure. Yeah, I think for the sake of brevity, it may require a bit of a more in-depth discussion. We do have a Facilities, Parks and Rec subcommittee meeting coming up. I would probably suggest maybe we start at that level and then bring the trustees some options. The baseball field has been inactive for a period of time. For the most part, there used to be softball tournaments out there. I think these are all great considerations. And I think the place to start with those conversations is probably in subcommittee, really because our biggest limiting factor is simply capacity. We have 2 guys in the field at a given time and myself. And, ultimately right now what we're doing is turning on sprinklers, getting Memorial Park restrooms ready, disc golf is up, tennis nets are up. We, to be blunt, can't do it all at once.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely hear that. I think what these folks wanted to emphasize too is that they're happy to help. Like basically knowing, a lot of stuff in this town happens with volunteers and support. And so not for you to feel like you're on your own, that there are people that are excited and passionate and can bring a rake and rake some seed or repair a sprinkler system or help out if that's possible.
Sure.
So great. If the subcommittee could talk about it, or if there are any options where volunteers could be put to use, they were definitely interested.
I guess one question I would have is this, our meeting for the subcommittee isn't for another little bit. I guess it's next week, but is there anything in the short term that we could give direction to the community? So Shory is who approached me and said that he's trying to start a community baseball thing, but that the field is a little too rough to be able to run on it. So are there temporary things that wouldn't do damage that we could give them permission to do if you wanted to get some volunteers together to even it out? Or should we really just wait and have that longer discussion with the committee?
I received an email this morning about this. I think that might just be, I'd like whatever we do to have some intention behind it and be thought out, as opposed to kind of just letting people, for lack of a better term, run loose with our facilities. I'd love to give that direction to the community. I'd love to get the community more engaged. But in the 9 hours since this morning, I haven't been able to renovate the baseball field.
Totally.
Okay.
Cool.
And maybe we could come back to the board with an update on that. Would that work?
That'd be great.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Awesome.
And the meeting's next week.
It's on Tuesday next week. I'll go on staff reports. Right, moving on to committee reports.
And I did include in the committee reports, our work session, product basically on our new assignments to our boards and committees from our May 2nd, sorry. Work session. And this is updated online as well. So people can go on our website and go to government and then town board and then committees from there. Just navigating through there.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on to our next agenda item, 8A. Well, trustee reports, and then A is retreat, which we have on May 6th.
Yes.
How do we want to provide an update to the community about our awesome retreat?
It was a full day. It was really expertly facilitated. We all attended in person. And this is a game.
Oh,
It goes around the
Hot
table and
potato.
everyone just kind of adds.
hot potato, do. All those things. We had a great time. More importantly, it was a chance for all of us to get together in a room and just let our hair down a little bit and be real and open and honest with one another, share a little bit, get deep. Maybe I got deep, I don't know. And able to really find the forest of the trees, but mainly see that we're all going in the same direction and just taking different avenues to get there. It was a good time. We all had a great time. And we made a video. It's online. We did. It's awesome.
Yeah, and it's on the locals
Yeah.
page. Most likes ever.
Record setting.
For any
That's it.
trustee update.
Hashtag. I just learned this. Hashtag. It's a thing. Passing the hot potato.
I don't have a whole lot to add other than it went really well, so. Leave it at that.
It seemed like we all left a long Friday meeting with a lot of optimism and enthusiasm, which was
I think
really
so.
fun. And we got better at cup stacking.
Yeah.
That was a
Good.
skill building activity.
Jeff or Tyler?
No, it was, it was great. It was great to see that, like Jim said, that we all have a similar goal and sometimes we just have different tacks that we take, and it's good to learn, the different ideas or the different ways people take to accomplish what turns out is pretty much the same goal for all of us, which is just to make the town the best version possible. So really good, really good team building and figuring out what our goals and objectives should be.
Which hasn't changed super dramatically from the last board, really, which I thought was really interesting too, where the big push of of our retreat was continuing the strong work, moving forward, supporting our locals and supporting our staff. And those are our biggest priorities.
Nice.
Yeah, and I just want to give a shout out to Cynthia Tillotson, who facilitated. She was phenomenal as facilitator, really, I think, guided the day seamlessly. And it was awesome. She's out of Durango. So if you have any facilitation needs, I can't recommend her enough.
And we will be coming back to you all with your goals that goal areas and goal priorities that we had decided on at the trustee retreat. And then you can adopt them formally in a meeting as soon as they're drafted.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Check
out that video.
Yeah.
Record setting.
Or not.
No, it was really good. It's really good.
I didn't realize how frumpy I look in that sweatshirt. So the next agenda item is 8B, still within trustee reports, which is the trustee public works tour. And a lot of us had the opportunity to, on 2 separate occasions, meet up with Director and see the massive amount of responsibility he has and knowledge he's developed on keeping our town running, which was pretty cool. Jim and I went on Thursday, and I believe Jeff and Dana went a few days prior to that. I think we got a slightly shorter tour, but
I asked a lot of questions.
but it was awesome. I mean, I think anyone in the community who has an opportunity to get a tour of the water facility and the wastewater facilities really should. It's pretty cool to see how everything works and what goes into it and how much
And
the
what
public
comes out
works
of
crew. Yeah. And actually how clean what comes out of it is, which is
Yeah.
cool.
Mhm.
Well, it gives a new appreciation for what John Seitz and his team does. It's incredible.
Yeah, I think just the idea that really they are monitoring what is happening with our water 24/7. And so just knowing that attention to detail and that level of effort was really neat to see. And what I really appreciated was also hearing about some of the great things planned for just improvements, right? When Jeff and I did a lot of the meet and greets with people before we were on the board, there were just lots of conversations about our basic infrastructure. And so to hear from Director Seitz about some of the really great stuff planned around our stuff that brings it in and stuff that brings it out was really encouraging. And I think we can celebrate that there are really great things in progress to address a lot of the concerns that community members raised. So I was very encouraged. Can I add a quick trustee update plug? Okay, so we have two great local events happening with the Ambulance Association and Silverton Strong. We're doing a cleanup day, town cleanup day. Everybody invited on Saturday at 1 p.m. to meet in front of the carriage house. We'll have all the supplies, so you just have to show up ready to pick stuff up. We hope to clean up the parks and then Blair and Green Street. So just encourage everybody in the community to come out. And then we're also doing family movie night on the 19th at 6 p.m. at Grand Imperial. So just local events, open to everybody, no cost, just come and be a part of stuff before it gets super crazy.
And have fun.
Have fun, yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
That's the bully pulpit there for you.
Any other trustee reports? Okie dokie. So we'll move on to continued business. 9A, consideration to appoint the last open citizen seat on the library board.
Okay, so you have two citizen interests in front of you. I'm sorry, this is why we pay you guys the big bucks to make these big decisions. But we have two citizens who are interested in one seat on the library board. And we're asking you all to make that decision on who would be on the library board.
There's like a voting process of current library board members.
That's what I was gonna say. Why is that not a library board decision?
There's no guidance from members or anything like that, or?
Jackie, and I talked to Jackie today, and her preference would be someone who's here 12 months out of the year.
Oh,
That was Jackie's preference. But other than that,
makes sense.
yeah. Those are your choices.
I don't believe that this board has sufficient context to make this decision. I think that one of the letters only said I have an interest, and then the other letter said I have an interest with one reason why. But I think that if we're tasked with the job of making this decision, I think we should receive maybe like a slightly more robust letter from each of the applicants explaining why they're a good candidate so that we can understand how better to make the decision.
Okay, we can definitely go back to them and ask them for a better.
Cool.
For
Or,
Just additional information.
additional information.
They may not have realized that that was the prompt.
or to confer with the library board and pass our power on this decision to the library board to make the decision as a board. I feel like those two options would be better than us trying to make this decision right now.
Okay.
Agreed. And sometimes when people volunteer, they don't know that someone else has also stepped up. So just making sure everybody's apprised of the information so that they can decide what's best for them.
Would it be possible to find out from the current board members if they would like to make that decision or if they would like us to? I'm assuming that hasn't already, had that already happened.
No, so we don't meet again until the 18th. The library board doesn't meet again until the 18th. And at that point, we could make a decision if you guys wanted to pass that on. Or we could have our applicants write like a one pager for you all or something.
Or do the applicants know of each other?
I think so.
They know that they both submitted.
So I'm kind of thinking on the fly here, but so for the school board, you don't necessarily have to submit like I don't know if we necessarily want to ask them to do homework.
Right.
So for the school board, they actually come in and interview one at a time. with the board so that the board can ask questions like, why would you like to do this? Like, what's your interest? Like, do you have any, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So we would ask them questions and then make a decision based on the interviews.
Okay,
But I don't know, I'm open to either way, but I think it may be easier for them to come in as opposed to writing
yeah,
an application.
And both interested are highly qualified.
Yeah,
So-
that's what makes that
I know.
impossible. It's an impossible, yeah, without, my preference was just to have them submit something in writing that's standard so that they know exactly what questions they're answering. Maybe the library board comes up with that. Those questions, like, I don't know what the library board would want, like, what's the best fit? But that's kind of my thinking on this is like, what,
And
how do we get better information to make a decision?
And one of the requests was that they're here 12 months out of the year. Is that
that was just Jackie's.
just?
Yeah,
That's, comes with a lot of weight behind it. That's
I
good.
did talk to her this morning and I said, you know, we've got 2 applicants, like, what would you recommend? And that was her recommendation.
Yeah, it sort of feels like more direction from the library board because this decision affects them more. And is it, I mean, again, I don't know what the legal requirements are, but can they have 2 more members? Is that prohibited? Both are very passionate and really want to do it.
Clay, I guess I would ask you that if we have a set number of members, board members in our code, can we have 1 more? Or would be 2 more probably?
Or is that like a bylaw change or something?
Yeah,
Yeah, you can't do it just on your, you
Okay.
can't just take unilateral choices and change however many trustees you have. You'd have to actually change your code.
right,
But I
okay.
mean, so if you want me, I can look into how you would do that. I think it'd probably be fairly simple if you're allowed to do it, but because you're a statutory town, I think you're limited in your form of government and your number of trustees. And my guess is that you're there.
It'd be just nice to hear more from the library board.
Even for the library board?
And this is just for the library.
Oh, no,
Right.
library board. No, I'm sorry. No,
And it is
library
set
board.
in our code.
Like, oh, let's make this 9.
If it's set, you just change the code.
Let's load this up right
If
here.
if it's an advisory board, you guys can change your code to have, 24 members if you want on that board.
Okay.
It is called a library trustee though, so it's a
Yeah,
confusion.
you were saying trust. I was like, oh, well, I've heard crazier questions, but yeah, put as many trustees on the library board as you want.
It looks like Todd has a.
Todd, you have a question?
I just wanted to chime in that it's my understanding the way the library board is structured, they operate almost entirely independently of the town, and it was established that way by Carnegie when it was formed. So I just wanted to offer some clarification. I don't believe the library board is an advisory board. I believe they are their own voting entity in charge of themselves, essentially.
Seems like a bigger reason why we shouldn't
Make this decision, yeah.
Well, we have our appointed advisor
Yes, you,
and there you
but I definitely don't speak for the whole board.
So we push it back to them.
I'm willing to take us back to the library board if we would like.
There's currently 4 members.
5. Or currently, yes, there's 5,
Or
yes,
Mary,
Phil,
Molly, Kim,
one.
and you.
yes, sorry. Right.
Should we just have them arm wrestle?
Yeah, I think I would suggest that we have the library board make the decision. They'll have the best idea of what will serve them best. And I mean, I don't know about the rest of the trustees here, but I don't have the best idea of what the library board does, what they, what actions they do, what they vote on. And so it's probably best that we leave that up to them.
Okay. So I guess the direction is to have a conversation with the 4 current members of the library board to see what they would like us to do and if they would like to make the decision as a board.
Okay,
In which case we can check with Clay what type of authorization this board needs to provide for that board to
To make that
To make that
decision, okay.
decision.
And if they don't want to make the decision, that we aren't comfortable making the decision without a recommendation about the structure, they would recommend to
Okay.
help us make the decision.
Okay.
Like interview, letter, you know,
Right.
just to give us a little bit more to go on. We need a secretary, we need a finance person.
Anything else on this one? So do we need to actually make a motion to table this subject to that direction?
Yeah, we do. Be great. We can make a motion.
Make a motion, we table it.
I'll second.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Jordan. Roll call, please.
Trustee Davis,
Yes.
trustee Kreener,
Yes.
trustee Harper,
Yes.
trustee Bierma,
Yes.
trustee George,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney,
Yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. Add that to the unanimous list.
Gloria.
Good, thank you, Gloria.
Hasn't impact, okay.
Hot potato.
Next item is 9B, Columbine Park Sanitation Plan discussion continued.
All right, so we have Todd here as well. But we have taken your feedback and looked into the purchasing of a trailer, which would host 6 units and an ADA unit. And Todd is here to talk you through his memo.
So pretty straightforward. I think the memo is pretty self-explanatory. It's really weighing, you know, we discussed the porta potties pretty in depth at the last meeting. This would be an option where we'd be able to retain, you know, if we don't hang on to the unit, at least recoup a good amount of our costs if we do sell it at the end, or we could consider hanging on to it as well. I'd be happy to field any questions or provide details in areas you guys may want a little more clarity. But I think the memo is pretty self-explanatory.
Thank you, Todd. Jim?
Oh, yeah, thank you, sir. My question was, it is a hefty price tag. Did we look into financing? Because there are good financing possibilities for these things.
Sure. As far as the actual purchase, I would defer to Gloria, or that's certainly something we could pursue if we decided we did want to in fact purchase it.
Mm-hmm.
I think this would be a great addition, and we can take it around town when needed.
And rent it to other people.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, like just drive it around town. but-
Tiny home.
Yeah.
Just cruising it.
You don't want to cruise in this thing. But in all
I mean, it's the
sincerity,
4th of July parade.
this is something that can be, you know, hardwired in essentially. And in the 4th of July parade.
I don't see a budget estimate for a wrap.
Exactly.
So like,
Not a bad-
No, we're gonna pair it with affordable housing. When we're done with it, we turn it into a tiny home. We'll be fine.
That could work. But in all sincerity, I think this is a brilliant idea, and I think this is much more palpable than 40 plus single stalls all around town. So thank you.
Todd, 2 quick questions. The one is just looking at the memo, it could be delivered here in 7 to 10 days. I guess we have to figure out where we're gonna put it, but will we be able to create the taps in that time as well?
The taps, we would have to specifically ask John Sites. Where we put it potentially has an impact on how quickly we could deploy it. Staff has looked into a couple options as far as where to place it. We currently feel that probably the recommended course from staff would be to put it in Columbine Park. We've spoken with Brian Anderson. He says he'll have the space he needs, and we could still probably fit the porta potty. Really, what would be displaced in that scenario would be the Eureka Station's bump out, which has historically been in Columbine Park. So weighing that, it seems like the best option, particularly because John can speak better to this, but it's a little more labor intensive to place it in other places when you're doing the taps. I spoke with Tiffany Decay. Also, she was very generous and offered to let us use her land as well. It's a little more difficult, is my understanding, to install the taps. Maybe I'll let John hop in here and clarify the placement, but essentially we have the option of Columbine Park and the option of Tiffany Decay's lots over next to the Shady Lady. And those are the two obvious choices as far as placement.
I'm in a conversation today with Gloria. She was saying that this trailer will also have a holding tank unit for if we were to rent it out in the future to other places, so that it could be moved around.
We would be able to purchase a holding unit. It was quoted verbally at $10,000 to add that, but that would not be available until September. That also poses some other challenges. The holding right now, the unit itself sits 4 inches off the ground. So for the ADA stall, we would only need a 4-foot ramp to service that. It's 1 inch over 1 foot is ADA code. So that's a really easy ramp to build. If we were to add a holding tank to this unit, it would raise it up to 48 inches off the ground. The holding tank sits underneath it. This unit essentially is moved into place and jacked down to ground level. We would jack it all the way up 4 feet and the holding tanks go underneath it. That would require 40 feet of ramp for ADA service. So either a 20-foot ramp with 1 switchback, or 10 foot with 4 switchbacks. It's problematic solving that issue when you start getting into a holding tank.
Just for clarification of the utility of it in the future, if we were to rent it out for events at Kendall or other things like that, it doesn't necessarily have that same ADA requirement, right? Like it requires an ADA stall and access for our use as for a public restroom, but if it's rented for a private event, does it still need to have ADA access?
I believe what you're saying is correct. For example, if it's rented for a wedding, they're not required in the same way a municipality is to offer ADA access. I think that would certainly be something we would want to do some due diligence on with code enforcement and potentially Clayton. But I initially would tend to agree with that sentiment, Shane.
Cool. Just as an idea, like whether or not that turns out to be true, if it is true, utility of it for renting it out and generating some revenue to offset the cost in the future is way greater. Has the town approached Mike Lawyer to get his views of not getting a bump out spot in Columbine Park?
I was able to catch up with Mr. Lawyer this afternoon. The bump out thing has always been a little difficult for him. It's been difficult to do it in the dirt street and because of the grading and some of the rain issues that happen. So we had agreed to work with him kind of in good faith to give him a bump out in the park. I had spoken, Mikey had asked a couple of months ago if he would still be able to use his bump out. And, I checked with Brian Anderson. We thought we could accommodate it and we would have enough space. With that said, so there was kind of the intention to have Mikey in the park this year. With that said, I did speak with him and he said, basically it's the cost of progress and he understands. And if he's got to kind of bear that load for this summer, he was willing to do that. And he would, under that scenario, really be the only person impacted on Blair Street. So he was okay with it for the greater good, essentially.
And John, what's the difficulty of having it tapped in over on that other open lot?
The location of the water main. The water main is on the west side of Blair Street. So, buddy here. The water main is on the west side of Blair Street. So it'll take a lot more time and a lot more effort, and it'll be a lot more disruptive to tie the water in on the other side of Blair Street. So if we put it on the Columbine Park side, then it's a really short run to the water main.
Yeah,
That's the big one.
yeah. You'd have to tap it in all the way across Blair, and it would be a big, yep.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You bet.
The town now requires porta potties at job site, at construction sites. Does this check the box for Brian Anderson's porta potty needs as well? And does that potentially somewhat reduce the cost?
We purchased, well, not purchased, we rented a unit from Bob's John specifically for the construction team and have provided them with their own lock and key.
Gotcha.
I have a question about afterwards with this. So I think this feels a lot more palatable than our original proposal. Thank you, Todd, for looking into this some more. As far as where we put it, when we're done with it for this summer, and can this unit, how well does a unit like this do in our winters? You know, like, is this thing gonna
Like, last
last?
go to Kendall. That's my question.
Yeah, like, where do we take it? What do we do with it? Where do we store it? How well will it do in the winter?
It depends on the winter for sure. You know, some of those impacts can be very variable. What I would be more concerned about is that, you know, this unit seems pretty robust and pretty well built. You know, how it will handle the volume of visitors that we see would remain to be seen. When you think in terms of trailers, you're always trying to shed weight. So a lot of times it's, you know, aluminum instead of steel, and it's, you know, cardboard or particle board instead of solid woods. I think this unit will serve us well, and I can't see it devaluing a whole lot over a 6-month period. But wear and tear would be a very real concern of mine on the unit, and we're, you know, in this scenario bearing the weight of that responsibility. We do our best, and we have some great maintenance guys with Chris and David who are phenomenal at staying up with things, but you know, it's going to look like what it looks like after 6 months, and we're not sure exactly what that impact would look like. These restrooms really get hammered on all summer.
Yeah, which is kind of how we're in the situation we're in.
Right.
And we can also sell it, right? I mean, we don't even have to try and imagine keeping it. We could just say, we had a summer and it's time to sell.
I think.
And if we lose $20,000 on it, we're still ahead.
Yeah, I think it really depends on, like Todd said, they take a lot of brunt. You know, most public restrooms, when you go into them, there's, you know, people's names carved in them, doors broken off, things of that nature. So it really depends on the sort of use it's going to get. But I think the idea is that a really good one. I think it fits our need a lot better than trying to manage, you know, several dozen porta potties. So thanks for doing the research on that, Todd.
I think this is the way to go.
Make a motion.
I make a motion. That was a joke. John got it. John saw it.
Oh.
That was for everyone. It was really good. Not everyone's laughing. Really disappointed in you. Yeah, let's make a motion to approve the Blair Street sanitation plan submitted by Todd Bove.
Second.
No number twos, no seconds. Giving you comic gold tonight, guys.
People are going to start tuning in to our meetings like crazy.
Breaking records.
Is there more discussion?
Before roll call, I just want to lodge one note about this. I'm supportive of this. I had a business owner come up to me today begging that we figure something out, because even just this weekend where things were still slow relative to normal, their bathroom got hammered by visitors, and they were just asking the town really figure some solution out in the near term. So I like this idea. I think it's a good idea. I do think it would be helpful to add this cost to our total Columbine Park construction costs, so that as we're talking about the amount that we've approved already and what the end aggregate ends up being after landscaping and everything else, we have like a accurate number of everything that we spent as a result of doing that work.
I'd also lodge a thank you to Todd for coming back with a
Totally.
really creative solution. Thanks for not getting dismayed and frustrated.
Well, Gloria found the actual trailer, so I appreciate the compliments from everybody, but she was the one who actually located it and tracked it down. So thanks to Gloria.
Just take that one.
Ready for roll call then?
Yes, roll call, please.
Trustee Davis,
Yes.
trustee Cranier,
Yes.
trustee Harper,
Yes.
trustee Bierman,
Yes.
trustee George,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney,
Yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. All those in
Have the coolest bathroom trip community in
Bodies and
the
parks.
It
region.
is gonna get hammered.
Back to you for a wrap. You know, can we get Deanne to do one of her cool pictures that would
Mhm.
wrap the whole thing?
All right, moving on to 9C, consideration to conduct first reading of ordinance 2022-04. An ordinance of the town of Silverton for the administrative modification of liquor license premises and the issuance of encroachment permits to facilitate outdoor dining within the town's rights of way and property.
All right, so this is in anticipation of the state authorization right now to, which we just did in our last meeting, had an emergency ordinance to do the bump outs. This is taking it that next step forward and adopting it into our code, and giving kind of the options of how to do a bump out as well. In our ordinance, we did reference our policy document that we created as far as kind of how to apply to the town and what parameters the town puts in place for the bump outs. And this is, you've seen this before in your previous, in last packet, actually, in your previous packet. So this ordinance wouldn't be our emergency ordinance, since that will expire on May 31st.
I just had a question if we have gotten any comments or feedbacks from business owners, like of how it's worked in the past, of how we're moving forward with adopting it permanently, if people are excited, enthusiastic, hoping to take advantage of it, ready for some barricades. Just curious what the business owners have provided as feedback. Yeah, thanks.
I've just gotten a few calls from business owners. A lot of them are excited to implement the bump outs, and they're just excited for, see how this ordinance goes through so that we have more clear information to provide them.
Thank you.
I couldn't tell in the language of the ordinance, and maybe this isn't where it lives, maybe it's in a different place. If this allows a restaurant to implement their own barricading system, as long as it's more than, tape, string, something flimsy. So, like as we travel around, we've obviously seen like really beautiful or more elaborate bump out systems. So if a restaurant wanted to decline the barricades, but implement something like the planters or the raised, some things like is there a way to allow for that or even encourage it?
So Todd, do you want me to take this one?
I'd be happy to speak to it.
Okay, go ahead.
Sure. So unless you wanted to. I think we could certainly do something like that. And that was kind of why we took this approach of implementing outdoor dining standards that can be modified essentially administratively. I'd be wholly supportive of encouraging folks to do more than barricades. I think we would just need some really simple design standards, and they would, of course, have to meet liquor law. So they would have to be a certain height. There could be no gaps whatsoever, et cetera. But I think those design standards could be put together pretty quickly, and approved materials, et cetera.
Well, and I think if restaurants and businesses know that this is something that the town is willing to commit to, and it doesn't feel as risky to invest in something like this, then they're more likely to potentially need guidelines like that. And I think if a business wants it, it's something I would be in favor of supporting and making sure that they can do something more than barricades, as long as it's more than flimsy string, or, you know, meets the town standards. So if we want to make, you know, I would give direction, or I would support the idea of coming up with what those standards might look like and allowing restaurants to sort of experiment with that this summer if possible.
And customize them and tailor them.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a great idea. I like it.
Yeah. Isn't part of that already included in this though? Well, I mean, because I also support it.
I couldn't really tell. And
it says.
So it's not in the ordinance.
Flimsy posts, caution tape and string are easily damaged and inside the materials are not permitted. So that covers half of it. I guess the other half is what materials can you use in case you want to build your own, and then, you know, what does the look have to be, et cetera. Did I get that right, Todd, or Gloria?
And the town of Silverton has the dining standards, but I didn't.
Right, so it's in the dining standards that we would keep it like conforming basically, so that we would provide the barricades. But we could definitely like present a amended version of that, something similar to Durango's bump outs, where they can build, if that is what the trustees wish.
I'd like to give that option to people.
Todd?
Yeah, I was just going to say, for the sake of process, if the trustees were comfortable, I don't want to volunteer myself and Bill, but these essentially these permits and the review process kind of goes through code enforcement. So, and we have everybody submit a design of their barricade plan. So I think we could pretty easily modify the language to just say if they wanted a submitted alternative to barricades, it could be considered on a case-by-case basis. And that would give staff the flexibility to, you know, essentially do what's in good taste if you trust our taste.
You picked out some really nice
Absolutely.
toilets, Todd. I feel great.
And we could formalize those standards, you know, in collaboration with code enforcement, and kind of have a supplemental sheet for people who did want to do them. I'm just trying to avoid tying things up in process, because we do really want to initiate this program as soon as possible. So I think we could almost do these things in tandem. And short of anyone wanting to do something extreme, you know, I think anything that is completely controlled, closed-in environment and is built with, you know, pretty standard construction materials would be good for consideration.
And we would, of course, make sure that the sheriff signs off on that for safety as well.
I like it.
Yeah. So should we make a motion to pass this with as is, and then work on the verbiage as to how they could approve different bump outs later? Or can we just say, make a motion to approve this as amended, or allowing Todd and Bill to make the, you know, a case-by-case basis approval of certain businesses? Or
And sure, so I think we got two things going here. We got the ordinance. So, and that really doesn't have anything to do with the actual like structure style of the bump outs. It refers back to our guide. So you can make the motion for the ordinance and then give staff direction on the guide.
perfect.
Sounds good.
Okay, I will make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 2022-04, an ordinance of the town of Silverton for the administrative modification of liquor license premises and the issuance of encroachment permits to facilitate outdoor dining within the town's rights of way and property.
I'll second. Thank you.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Davis,
Yes.
trustee Kraniger,
Yes.
trustee Harper,
Yes.
trustee Bierma,
Yes.
trustee George,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney,
Yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Can you promote Nathan to panelist, please?
All right. Moving on to our next agenda, item 9G, consideration to approve a revision to the Aravipa Race Special Event application.
Can everyone hear me?
Can.
Perfect. Unfortunately, I can't join video at this time, but I just want to speak briefly about the amended special event application that Julie Haro has submitted for the Aravipa running event. Currently, she is wanting to add the addition of amplified live music at the finish line, as well as vendor booths within Memorial Park for their event. Nothing has changed about the course or the operations, but due to that change, we wanted to bring it before the board to make the final decision. This application was originally approved without the vendors or music back on January 10th, unanimous approval. And if anyone has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
I have a question. Historically, don't we have a charge for vendor booths that's not related to the rest of the event?
Correct. All vendors for any special event have to go through the vendor permit application process, which is attainable at Town Hall. And you have two options. You can either be a vendor at one event for a $35 fee, or you can pay an annual fee of $50 and be at as many events as you would like. But that does have to get approved by the town clerk before they're allowed to operate.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering, are the vendors going to be local vendors, or are they, do they have vendors that sort of show up to their races and sort of go around with them? And then do they need to be notified about that?
The event organizer is aware of the vendor permit application process for any out-of-towners that may be interested in joining. And if they are a local business, the purpose of the vendor permit application is for sales tax recuperation. So if they have a business license in town, they don't have to get the vendor permit application.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the amended special events application for the annual Kendall Mountain Run and Silverton Alpine Run.
Second.
Very cool. Thank you.
Roll.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Davis,
Yes.
trustee Kraniger,
Yes.
trustee Harper,
Yes.
trustee Bierma,
Yes.
trustee George,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney,
Yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And thank you, Nathan, for walking us through that.
Thank you so much for your time.
All right. That was our last agenda item. So now we'll move to our closing public comment. If you're on Zoom, please click the raise hand button. We'll promote you to panelist. Seeing no public comment, we'll go ahead and close public comment and adjourn the meeting. The time is 9:01 p.m. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Later.
See you all on Wednesday for ethics training.
So when, oh no,
Oh,
I missed my chance to say something about their art show.